Picture this. You're cruising across the open ocean with a glass of Macallan 18 in your hand, ice gently clinking with the rhythm of the waves. Then you look up. The Milky Way stretches across a pitch-black sky, brighter than you've ever seen it. It's the kind of view that makes you completely forget the whiskey in your hand. For a moment, you just stand there, taking it all in. Then you lean over the railing. The water below isn't reflecting the stars anymore. It's just black, endless. Suddenly, that whiskey doesn't seem nearly as interesting. A chill crawls down your spine because somewhere deep inside, your brain starts whispering the same thought people have had for thousands of years. If the light can't reach it, what's hiding down there? That feeling, the one creeping up your spine right now, is exactly what a real exploration crew experienced when their sonar scanned the seafloor. They weren't looking at a coral reef. They weren't looking at an old shipwreck. Instead, their screen lit up with something enormous. A perfectly shaped object that looked far more like a spacecraft than anything nature should have made. Welcome to the Baltic Sea, one of the strangest discoveries ever recorded beneath the ocean. A perfectly circular object nearly 200 feet across. Behind it stretched a gouge, almost 1,000 feet long, carved straight into the seabed, as if something had slammed into the ocean floor and skidded to a stop. So, what exactly did they find? The Baltic Sea Anomaly. The Baltic Sea is cold, dark, and unbelievably well preserved. It's also one of the largest underwater graveyards on Earth. Viking ships, merchant vessels, warships from both world wars, hundreds of wrecks resting silently beneath the surface, many preserved for centuries by the sea's unique conditions. For treasure hunters, that's a dream come true. A Swedish exploration team called OceanX built their reputation searching these waters. They specialized in locating historic shipwrecks and recovering valuable cargo, including bottles of centuries-old champagne worth a fortune. Finding the unexpected was simply part of the job, or so they thought. Now imagine you're sitting in front of the sonar monitor. It's the summer of 2011. You've spent hours watching the same empty stretch of seafloor scroll past. Your coffee's gone cold. Your eyes are tired. Nothing, still nothing. Then, everything changes. Nearly 300 feet below the surface, something huge suddenly appears on the screen. Your hand freezes over the keyboard. After hours of staring at absolutely nothing, there it is. It isn't shaped like a ship. It isn't shaped like a reef. Instead, you're looking at an almost perfectly circular object nearly 200 feet across. Its outline is so clean, it doesn't look natural at all. Your mind immediately starts searching for an explanation. Geology? No. Ocean currents? Not even close. Instead, one completely irrational thought jumps to the front of your mind. It looks exactly like the flying saucers you've seen in science fiction movies. You call Captain Peter Lindbergh over. He studies the monitor. Then he goes completely silent. For someone who's spent decades exploring the sea, that silence says everything. No one in the room speaks, because everyone is thinking the exact same thing. They're just hoping someone else says it first. You zoom out to see the full sonar image. That's when you notice something even stranger. Trailing behind the circular object is a gouge, stretching for more than 1,000 feet across the seafloor. a long, uninterrupted scar carved into the mud. A trench like that tells a dramatic story. Whatever created it didn't simply settle onto the seabed. It appears to have struck the continental shelf with tremendous force before sliding hundreds of yards across the ocean floor, finally coming to rest where it sits today. At least, that's what it looks like. And that's where the speculation begins. Nature rarely produces perfectly circular shapes. Sharp, geometric edges are even harder to explain, and no known civilization from thousands of years ago had the technology to build anything remotely like this. So, what else could it be? The first theory spread almost immediately. Some people called it the Roswell of the Baltic Sea. According to them, this wasn't a natural formation at all. It was the remains of an alien spacecraft that had crashed into Earth thousands of years ago. Others looked for a more earthly explanation. Maybe it was part of a secret Nazi military project, or perhaps the entrance to a hidden underground bunker. As unusual as that sounds, the Baltic Sea was heavily militarized during World War II and served as a testing ground for advanced naval technology. So the idea wasn't entirely dismissed. Then there was another possibility. Some suggested it could be part of a Soviet submarine lost during the Cold War. Perhaps a detached section of the vessel, badly damaged, and eventually swallowed by the sea. Three very different explanations, one mysterious object. And suddenly, everyone had an opinion. The leaked sonar image spread across the internet almost overnight. News outlets picked it up. Online forums exploded with theories. Before long, the Baltic Sea Anomaly had become one of the most talked about underwater mysteries in the world. For the OceanX team, walking away wasn't an option. They raised the money for another expedition and returned to the exact coordinates. This time, they weren't looking for another sonar image. They wanted to see the object for themselves. What happened next was completely unexpected. The ship passes directly over the anomaly. Then, every screen in front of you goes dark. Not one monitor. Every single one. All at exactly the same moment. You grab the satellite phone. No signal. The underwater cameras stop responding. Navigation equipment begins acting strangely. For a few unsettling moments, it's as if the ship has gone completely blind. You reverse course, then slowly approach again. The crew repeats the test several times, and a strange pattern begins to emerge. Within roughly 200 meters of the object, the electronic problems begin. Outside that distance, everything works normally again. You move back beyond the invisible boundary. Every system comes back online. You head toward the object again. The equipment fails. Again, no warning, no gradual interference. One moment everything works, the next, it doesn't. If those observations were accurate, the implications were remarkable. It almost seemed as though the object was surrounded by an electromagnetic field, one powerful enough to interfere with nearby electronics. Whether that field originated from the object itself, or something else entirely, no one could say. Once reports of the mysterious electronic failures became public, interest in the story exploded all over again. The headlines practically wrote themselves. An unidentified object, a mysterious trench, electronics that supposedly stopped working overhead. At that point, there was only one logical next step. Someone had to go down there and see it with their own eyes. The story is making headlines everywhere. Now it's your turn to find out what's really down there. You sit on the edge of the dive boat, checking your gear one last time. Your regulator, your gauges, everything has to be perfect. Then, you lean back and slip into the water. In just a few minutes, you'll be nearly 300 feet below the surface of the Baltic Sea, where every decision matters. The cold hits immediately. Within seconds, daylight begins to fade above you. The deeper you descend, the darker everything becomes. Your dive light is now the only thing cutting through the water. You stretch out your hand, and it disappears into the darkness. Even your dive partner is little more than a faint silhouette drifting beside you. Your fins hover just above the soft seabed. You sweep your flashlight across the silt. Then it appears, the object that has captivated the world, silent, motionless, waiting in the darkness. You reach out and place a gloved hand against its surface. It isn't smooth metal. It doesn't feel anything like the hull of a ship. But it doesn't resemble the surrounding seabed either. Whatever it is, it immediately feels different. You slowly trace your light along its edge. Steep walls, sharp corners, straight lines that seem oddly geometric. Then you notice a large fracture cutting deep into the formation. From the right angle, it almost resembles the entrance to a passageway. As you run your glove across the surface, a dark residue smears onto the fabric. The object is coated with it. Thick, black, almost like soot. It raises an obvious question. How does something sitting beneath the sea end up looking as though it has been exposed to intense heat? There's only one way to get real answers. You pull out a geological hammer, a few careful strikes. A small fragment breaks free. You seal it inside a sample bag. Now the mystery leaves the ocean and enters the laboratory. The rock samples are sent to geological laboratories for analysis. Scientists begin examining their composition, while reporters and the public wait for the results. Everyone is asking the same question. Could this finally be evidence of something not from Earth? The testing begins. Chemical analysis, mineral identification, high-powered microscopes. Every technique available is used to determine exactly what the object is made of. When the results arrive, they challenge almost every popular theory. No exotic metals, no unknown elements, no evidence of advanced technology. Instead, the samples contain familiar materials, granite, gneiss, sandstone, ordinary rocks found throughout Earth's crust. On paper, the conclusion seems straightforward. The object isn't an alien spacecraft. It isn't built from mysterious materials. It's rock. The same kinds of rock found in countless places around the world. But that answer creates an entirely new problem. If it's simply rock, why does it appear so remarkably symmetrical? Why do parts of it seem almost geometric? What created the dark coating covering its surface? And perhaps the biggest question of all, if this really is a natural formation, what force could have moved something this massive, leaving behind a scar more than 1,000 feet long across the seafloor? To understand what this object really is, we need to go back about 14,000 years, not to another planet, not to an ancient civilization, just to a very different Earth. A time when enormous ice sheets covered much of northern Europe. Those glaciers weren't moving fast. In fact, they advanced only a few feet each day. But they didn't need speed. They had something far more powerful: time. Over thousands of years, billions of tons of ice slowly reshaped entire landscapes, carving valleys and moving mountains 1 inch at a time. As the glaciers advanced, they ripped enormous blocks of rock from mountainsides. Some of those boulders were carried for hundreds of miles. Others traveled even farther. Pressed beneath unimaginable weight, many were gradually ground into smoother, more rounded shapes during their long journey beneath the ice. Then the Ice Age came to an end. The glaciers melted. The landscape flooded. Over time, the basin that would become the Baltic Sea filled with water. As the ice disappeared, it released the enormous boulder it had carried for thousands of years. The rock settled onto the soft seabed, where it has remained ever since. That also helps explain the mysterious trench. When a boulder weighing thousands of tons settles into soft marine sediment, it can leave a long disturbance behind it. Combined with shifting sediments and powerful currents over thousands of years, the result can resemble the long groove seen in the sonar images. Geologists even have a name for rocks like this. They're called glacial erratics. What about the sharp angles? Granite naturally fractures along straight planes when placed under enormous pressure. Glaciers are exceptionally good at creating those fractures. And the black coating? That can be explained as well. Over thousands of years underwater, manganese-rich minerals slowly accumulated across the rock's surface, forming the dark layer seen by the divers. That leaves one final mystery: the reported electronic failures. One possible explanation lies in the rock itself. Large glacial boulders can contain magnetic minerals such as magnetite. Some researchers have suggested those minerals may have influenced nearby instruments under certain conditions, although no definitive cause has ever been confirmed. There's another possibility. The equipment may simply have malfunctioned. Cold temperatures, salt water, and complex electronics don't always work well together. Sometimes, several unrelated problems happen at once, and once a mystery captures people's imagination, it's easy to connect those events into a single, unforgettable story. Psychologists have a name for that tendency: pareidolia. It's our brain's habit of recognizing familiar patterns in random shapes, faces in the clouds, animals in the stars, or a flying saucer hidden beneath the sea. It's a deeply human instinct, one that has helped us survive for thousands of years. The idea of an alien spacecraft is undeniably fascinating. But the real story may be even more extraordinary. Imagine a glacier taller than a skyscraper dragging part of a mountain across an entire continent, only to leave it resting on the floor of the Baltic Sea thousands of years later. Nature doesn't need science fiction. Sometimes it's already incredible enough. So what do you think? Does the scientific explanation solve the mystery? Or do you believe there's still something we haven't uncovered beneath the Baltic Sea? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring mysteries where science and the unknown collide, don't forget to subscribe. There's another fascinating investigation waiting for you on your screen right now. I'll see you in the next one.